Last but not least, it's the lower limb. Hooray, we're almost done because these are terrible and hard to do. So, starting off, we're going to do muscles that act on the femur. Oops. So there's the iliopsoas, which is how I learned it, but I don't know if that's right. It originates on the iliac fossa and crest in the lateral sacrum. That's for the iliacus, which is one of the two muscles that make it up. T12 and lumbar vertebrae is where the psoas major originates. They both insert on and just below the lesser trochanter of the femur. So right here, you'll see it on the skeletal model. And they act in thigh flexion and flexing the trunk on thigh. So right here and right there, and lateral flexion of spine, turning. Lateral flexion of spine is mostly the psoas major. You see right here, it's going to go that direction. The rectus femoris is part of the quadriceps. It originates on the anterior inferior iliac spine and the superior margin of the acetabulum, which is your hip socket. It inserts on the tibial tuberosity and the patella. Its function is to extend the leg and flex the thigh, which makes sense if you think about it shortening. It's going to bring your knee up towards the origin. The vastus lateralis is another part of the quadriceps. It originates at the greater trochanter of the femur, in the intertrochanteric line of the femur, and the lineosphere of the femur. It inserts on the tibial tuberosity and the patella, which is where all the quadriceps are going to insert, and its function is to extend the leg and stabilize the knee. So you see the leg extension and stabilizing knee. You can't get a good picture of, but you kind of understand that if it comes around and inserts on the tibia, it's definitely going to go down around the side of the knee. The vastus intermedius is another part of the quadriceps that originates on the anterior and lateral surface of the femur. It's going to insert on the tibial tuberosity and the patella, and its function is to extend the leg, which is what the quadriceps do. If you think about it, if you try to flex your quadriceps, it shortens the top of your thigh, which brings up your knee towards your body. Well, kind of, sort of. Let's see. So, see right here, origin to insertion. The vastus medialis is going to be another part of the quadriceps, and it originates at the linea aspera and the intertrochanteric line of the femur. Its insertion is the tibial tuberosity in the patella, and it functions in extending the leg and stabilizing the patella. It's another thing where you're going to see it comes around the tibia, so it's definitely going to come around the side and stabilize the insertion, stabilize the knee. And you see this is medial, and then the lateralis is lateral, and the intermedius is in the middle. The adductor magnus is right there and there. It originates at the ischial and pubic rami, which are part of your pelvis, and your ischial tuberosity, which is also part of your pelvis. It sticks out on your ischium. Your three main bones are the ischium, ilium, pubis. It's going to insert on the linea aspera in the adductor tubercle of femur. You can see it inserts on the adductor tubercle, and then one of its functions is adduction. So it's going to adduct, medially rotate, and flex the thigh. It's a synergist in thigh extension with the quadriceps, because it's in that area. It can kind of help do the same job, but since it's small, it just helps out. You'll see it does medial rotation, so it rotates your foot inward. Rotating your foot inward. Adduction, bring your leg in. So the adductor magnus is right here. So you can see how if your leg was extended, if your leg was out here, when you would contract this muscle, it would bring it back in towards the origin, which is near your midline. The adductor longus originates at the pubis near the pubic symphysis and inserts on the linea aspera of the femur. Its function is to adduct, medially rotate, and flex the thigh. So the same thing. You see this one kind of originates here and goes to here in a different spot. The adductor brevis, which is the shortest one, it originates on the body in the inferior pubic ramus, and it inserts on the linea aspera. I couldn't find a good picture of it on the model, so this was the best I could do. The function is to adduct, medially rotate, and flex the thigh. So same thing, this adductor group all does the same motion, same group of motions. That's the adductor brevis. You see how it's a lot shorter than your adductor longus and stuff. Your gluteus maximus, your glute, your booty, it originates at the dorsal ilium, the dorsal being the back, ilium, sacrum, and coccyx, coccyx being your tailbone. It inserts on the gluteal tuberosity of your femur, which is on the back of your femur, and the iliotibial tract. It's a major thigh extensor and antagonist of iliopsoas. It laterally rotates and abducts your thigh, which is bringing your leg out. So you see your gluteus maximus makes this lovely little thing here. Well, below the gluteus maximus, there's the gluteus medius, which originates at the upper lateral surface of the ilium and inserts on the greater trochanter of the femur. Its function is to adduct and medially rotate the thigh and steady the pelvis during walking. So, it adducts and medially rotates thigh and steadies pelvis during walking, which I just said. So you see right here, it doesn't, where the gluteus maximus originates all up here, it's below that, and it's over, whoop, that's a bad color. It's down here, and smaller. The gluteus minimus is below that. So the gluteus minimus is the deepest gluteal muscle, the deepest booty muscle. It's going to originate at the external inferior surface of the ilium, which is, I don't know why that came out as word vomit, and insert at the greater trochanter of the femur. Its function is to abduct and medially rotate the thigh, steadying pelvis. So you see how it medially rotates, bringing it in, and it's going to abduct, pushing it out. Yep. So you see how it starts lower. It just kind of increasingly gets lower. So your maximus originates up here. Your minimus your medius is here, and your minimus is here. Your biceps femoris, not to be confused with your biceps brachii, is a two-headed muscle that's in your leg right here. So the big head, the long head, it is long and short. So your long head's like that, and your short head's like that. So it's going to originate at the ischial tuberosity, which is what the long head's going to originate. You see how it's up here. And the short head is going to originate on the linea aspera and distal femur because it starts a lot lower. It inserts by a tendon passing laterally to insert into the head of fibula and lateral condyle of tibia. So its function is a knee flexion, which makes total sense if you think about this. It's going to contract. So if this is your muscle, when it contracts, I'm trying to make this fun, when it contracts, it's going to pull up and pull your leg back. Your leg's going to go back. Your semitendinosus is hard to find on this model, but it's there. The semitendinosus originates at the ischial tuberosity and inserts at the medial aspect of the upper tibial shaft. Its function is to extend the hip and flex the knee. So you see how it flexes the knee. And hip extension is to pull back, if I'm correct. Maybe not. Don't take my word for it. Say you see here how it would perform the same role. If this is your muscle and it's going to pull insertion towards origin like that, it's going to shoot your leg like that. The semimembranosus, not to be concerned with the tendinosis, originates on the ischial tuberosity and inserts on the medial condyle of the tibia and the lateral condyle of the femur. Its function is to extend the hip and flex the knee. Same thing. They work as a team. So you see here, if this is your muscle, it's going to sorry for that noise. It's going to pull your knee. So now the additional muscles of the thigh, not your giant movers, but the other ones that cover them up. So the sartorius, which is one of my favorites because I just think it's super cool, that it transverses across. See right here, this is your sartorius. It's going to originate on the anterior superior iliac spine, the ASIS. It's going to insert by an aponeurosis, which is a connective tissue sheet, into the medial aspect of the proximal tibia. So it's going to be the medial aspect of the proximal tibia. It's going to be down here. It's going to flex, abduct, and laterally rotate the thigh and flex the leg. So you see your sartorius kind of traverses this whole thing and inserts. Sorry about that. So it's just going to kind of traverse across from your hip to your knee. Whoops. So your tensor fascia lata comes across the side, which is super cool about it is this part from here down is connective tissue. The muscle itself is this tiny little thing up there. So your tensor fascia lata it originates on the anterior aspect of your iliac crest and the anterior superior iliac spine. It's going to insert onto the iliotibial tract, and its function is to steady the trunk on the thigh, flex, abduct, and medially rotate the thigh. All of these, very versatile. So you see here, I kind of tried to demonstrate what would be connective tissue from here down, and here's the muscle, and it even connects connective tissue up there. So it's really just a small little muscle that happens to be in a good spot. The gracilis, it runs down the medial part of things. It's going to originate at the inferior ramus in the body of the pubis, not pubic. And insert onto the medial surface of the tibia just inferior to the medial condyle. The function is to adduct thigh, flex, and medially rotate leg, especially during walking. So, you see it right there. It's medial instead of like the tensor fascia lata being lateral. Lateral gracilis is medial. So you see it runs right there. The muscles of the leg, anterior compartment. So this is your crural region instead of your femoral region. It's going to be from your knee down. So you have your tibialis anterior, which is basically like where your shin is. It's going to originate at the upper tibia and the interosseous membrane between the tibia and the fibula. It's going to insert by tendon into the inferior surface of the first cuneiform and the metatarsal one. So that's parts of your foot. A lot of these go from your leg to your foot and help you do foot movement. So you're going to get familiar with dorsiflexion, which is pulling your foot this way towards the back, and then plantar flexion, which is putting it towards the plants. But this one does dorsiflexion, so this one pulls up. You can see how when it contracts, it would pull up if you go from insertion up to origin when it contracts. Its function is it's a prime mover of dorsiflexion, so that movement, and it's going to invert the foot. So you see how it would pull your foot towards your knee. The extensor digitorum longus, so it's an extensor of your digits. It's going to originate on the lateral condyle of the tibia and proximal fibula and the interosseous membrane. It inserts into the middle and distal phalanges of toes 2 through 5. So not your big toe, your little toes. Its function is it's a prime mover of toe extension, which surprisingly is pulling your toes towards your body, and it dorsiflexes foot. So it's the same movement for your feet as well as your toes, pulling them towards your leg, towards your body. So the extensor digitorum longus kind of does like a fan-shaped thing, kind of is going to go like that. It inserts by tendon too, so that's important to note. The extensor anterior compartment leg muscles originate on the fibula shaft and base of distal phalanx of great toe and other toes. So these are your extensor muscles, vaguely, because it wasn't easy to see on this demonstration. And since they're extensors, they're going to do extensor movements, extension of your toes, extension of your foot, which is dorsiflexion. It's going to originate at the fibula shaft, insert at the base of the distal phalanx of the great toe, so your big toe, and your other toes. And it's going to extend your great toe, dorsiflex, and do other toe extension. So both of those kind of are going to do this. In my research, I found that there were two, but you didn't have to be specific. So the internet was not super helpful, nor was the lab manual, but I tried. This one's going to be kind of short too. I know my other ones were super long, but you have enough to grade, and I can get the point across by talking fast. So now we're going to the muscles of the leg, the lateral compartment, so the side. We have the peroneus, or the fibularis longus, which is going to originate at the head and upper portion of the tibia and insert on the bi-tendon under your foot to metatarsal 1 in the medial cuneiform. So it's going to do plantar flexion and eversion, so the opposite of our last couple muscles. So you see how it's going to go, boop, like that. This is it right here. It's pretty long, so you can kind of remember longest. And what's next? The peroneus brevis is short. It's actually at the end of the longus, right there-ish. Its origin is the distal portion of the fibular shaft, and it's going to insert by tendon behind the lateral malleolus to insert on metatarsal 5. Its function is to plantar flex and evert. I feel like I should say metatarsal 5 is the little toe. I don't know how much explanation you need, but so it's going to work. This lateral compartment is going to do the opposite of your anterior compartment. So you see how it's a little bit smaller. So the peroneus fibularis tertius, which seems to be the most irrelevant part, but I guess it's important, is going to surprisingly do dorsiflexion and eversion, which is a weird combination if you think about it. It's going to originate at the distal anterior surface of fibula and interosseous membrane. It's going to insert onto the, it's going to insert onto the tendon, or into a tendon, which is going to insert on dorsal metatarsal 5, your pinky. Its function is dorsiflexion and eversion, which makes total sense if you think about dorsiflexion. Eversion, like turning your foot out and up, is very pinky directed. See, it's a little fella. That's right there in the interosseous membrane. So muscles of the leg in the posterior compartment, which is basically like your calf muscles, the ones that really hurt when you work out too much. So you have a gastrocnemius, which is one of my favorite leg muscles, because it's just such a fun name. I like to think of it because the muscle's got like a huge belly, so gastro, and it's a big muscle belly. Or it originates from two heads, so you see how there are two heads. For medial and lateral condyles of femur, which you can see on the skeletal model. I'll just go ahead and show you. See, it's going to wrap around, kind of, right there on the medial and lateral condyles. It's going to insert by a tendon into the calcaneus, by your Achilles tendon, and it's going to function in plantar flexion, and it can flex your leg when the foot is dorsiflexed. So I put that image, but that's kind of a weird condition. So yeah, you see right here would be your gastroc, and then your Achilles, which is super wild to tear. I've seen a few people do it, and it looks really super painful. And then there's the soleus. The soleus is behind your, gastrocnemius. So it's going to originate on your proximal tibia and fibula in an interosseous membrane. Its function is, its insertion is calcaneus, and its function is plantar flexion. So it's going to push your foot down. So soleus runs under. If this is your gastroc, your soleus is here. The deep muscles of the posterior compartment of the leg, I don't know why that's such weird wording. They originate, it's vague because there's like 4 of them. They originate at the lateral condyle of femur, or the interosseous membrane, or the medial tibia, not tibula, that's my pet peeve. Medial tibia or posterior fibula. It's going to insert onto the tibia or the plantar surface of the tarsals or the plantar great toe. Its function is lateral rotation at knee, or foot inversion, and plantar flexion and toe flexion. So this group of muscles, you see how it's deep. When you pull back your calf muscles, you see these. They're deep and they're posterior. So, yeah. So you see how this is just kind of like a line where they probably originate from, moving downward, and then they basically insert down here. But some are gonna insert like here and here, but that was the best little insertion, the most broad I could put. So now the muscles of the foot, because we're almost done with this whole muscles unit, praise God. I'm sitting on a beach. Adductor hallucis, which is a strange little muscle. It originates at a bunch of different places, including the metatarsal 2 through metatarsal 4. So right here you see them attaching to the metatarsals. Right, yeah. And fibularis longus tendon, which is here, and the ligament across the MTP joints, which is here, metatarsal phalangeal joints. and it's going to insert onto the proximal phalanx of the great toe. So right here, proximal closest to your body, phalanx. Phalanx? I think it's phalanx. Its function is to maintain the transverse arch of foot. So you see how that would be the transverse arch right here, and that's where it all hooks up. So yeah. Then you have basically you could see it way better on the other model, but I felt like I needed to put the skeletal one for this. So that's kind of the general path. I'm going to erase this because it doesn't do that, but it's like a triangle, kind of, an arrow pointing to the big toe, because it helps a lot with your big toe maintaining support. The extrinsic foot muscles, they're extrinsic because they don't originate within the foot. They originate within the leg and move the foot. So they're going to originate in the anterior, posterior, and lateral compartments of the leg. Their insertions are non-specific. They're kind of all over the foot. And in tendons, they form tendons. The tendons attach to the foot, because a muscle can't run all the way to your foot. That would be crazy. Functions are eversion, inversion, plantar flexion, and dorsiflexion of the foot. So all foot movements, because it's a bunch of foot muscles. But not fine motor skills. These are basically like huge motor skills. These aren't like your digital movements. These are your big joint movements. So dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, eversion, inversion. Contrastingly, the intrinsic foot muscles do the fine motor skills. They do the tiny little toe movements, all the wiggling you can do, all the little piggy dances. They're going to originate and insert within the foot. It was kind of, we didn't have to be specific, but you can see how they all run under, right there through, under those tendons. It's going to function the fine motor actions of the foot, the movement of the individual digits. So the intrinsic and the extrinsic kind of contrast in movement, but they're both super important for your feet. Anyways, that's all. Thanks for coming and trying to teach us. Happy e-learning. And happy quarantine, everybody. Woohoo!